is now 4:32, and I'll call the York County Health and Environmental Protection Committee to order. So it's January 20th, 2026. First order of business is to approve the minutes from the December 8th, 2025 Health and Environmental Protection Committee meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
All right, I'll second. All in favor? Aye. All right, and then second item is staff update on the Long Range Parks Master Plan.
And Catherine, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you.
Sorry, I do not.
Oh, okay. I was going to say.
Oh, you wanted me to? Sorry,
Yes.
I certainly could.
I only have one slide. Good evening, and it's good to see everyone here. Let's see.
How are you?
Sure.
Hey, David. Good to see you. I'll sit over there to balance out or what? Here.
Okay, how about, are you
That's where you were requested to sit.
Okay, good. You got my
Yep.
text, right?
Yes. Okay.
how about,
We waited till 1.
That'll be fun. Thank you.
just send you
4:32.
Okay,
See that.
And Councilman Hucklebee's here. Super. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
The two things we're going to discuss on the agenda this evening, which are relatively brief, but we really encourage your feedback and any questions. First, update on the Long Range Parks Master Plan, subsequently an update on progress at Catawba Bend Preserve and Wood End Park. And Madam Clerk, if you'll go to the next slide, I'll just begin with the Long Range Master Plan. And you may recall at the last meeting, I handed out a very detailed scope on what a Long Range Master Plan could look like. There were deliverables, timetables, things like that. But what I wanted to do is present just this slide with a little bit more brevity. And I have taken the opportunity to consult with 3 different firms: Goodwin, Mills, Kaywood, Pond, Withers, Ravenel. They all have experience in parks master planning and parks projects. So I took the discussion that we had at the last committee meeting, and I had probably 45-minute discussions with each of the firms. So when you break everything out, and I'll try to be succinct when I explain this, although I'm sure you all can read the slide, the bullet points, and the options. In the scope and cost comparison, the least expensive option, which I call the baseline option, is probably going to run in the $150,000 to $175,000 range. And the baseline would include a focus really on what we're doing already with regard to what we want to pay attention to with our parks, which I believe are all in unincorporated areas, correct? And we do work with some of our smaller municipalities, as evidenced by the new funding model that we have. So I think that York, Clover, and the 4 smaller munis could be potential stakeholders, because we may want to seek future capital partnerships with them. But that would be call it the geographic scope or the business scope of what we want to do, or whom we want to include as stakeholders. And we would do an inventory and needs assessment, consider maybe some form of minimal public feedback if we want to have a hearing or a showing, or just something to give the general public some opportunity to tell us whether they like it, dislike it, make some recommendations on modifications, but it wouldn't be as intensive with the other 2 options. And then we would probably get some high-level feedback on what a 10-year capital plan would do. I know we spoke possibly of 20, but after speaking with all of the consultants, they think if we're going to do any type of projection on future capital costs, it wouldn't necessarily be in the form of a parks capital improvements plan, but we could think of it as kind of a cafeteria plan, if you will, or going to a cafeteria, Morrison's and the like, you know, where you can go pick what you want and try to plug and play into our broader capital improvements plan or program that we're trying to do. Now, if we want to go to some enhanced feedback, that would be in the 195,000 to 210,000 range, and we would do what's called a countywide analysis, which considers what we have, but also looks at what the other municipalities are doing, maybe not necessarily nonprofits, but it would give us something of a framework of comparison for what we do compared to what the others do, and if there are opportunities for partnerships, or if we want to direct or redirect our operations and maintenance, or the scope of services that we actually provide. Now, we could, in this option, put in some broader public engagement tools. Typically that would involve public surveys and meetings. Online engagement tools would be included with that. And then something of a prioritized implementation strategy, particularly for the capital side. They could help us if we talk to them about funding availability, what our future window and lens is for that, and they could help us do sort of a park CIP for consideration by committee and council going forward. And then option number 3, which I call regional scale, envisions that full-on handout that I shared with you all at the last HEP committee meeting. And we would have fuller engagement with the municipalities, nonprofits, perhaps even the K-12 school systems. We could talk a little deeper about shared use partnership strategies, and we could even go further and talk about foundation-ready implementation planning. So kind of think of it as a stair step or a ladder of options, depending upon what you as the committee would like to do, and ultimately the council. And in option 3, that would also include a deeper dive into operations and maintenance needs in the future that would line up more with capital planning, especially if we make acquisition for new parks properties and development for them. So this is, think of this as a spectrum of scope, costs, and what we can consider going forward. But going back a couple meetings back in terms of the HEP committee, I do feel like that you have interest in doing this, and yet this could possibly even be a phased approach too. You know, we start out with a baseline, which is obviously going to be advanced from the Clemson plan, but if we wanted to go forward in subsequent years, you know, we could add the other options, or what we could do if you agreed, and if it was subsequently approved in the budget, if we were to put out a bid, we could do add alternates for options 2 and 3, or sets of add options or add alternates, and see what kind of pricing that we get, knowing that our main objective is to go with option 1 on the baseline. Do you guys have any other thoughts on this kind of, or these kind of scenarios? Okay, so that's kind of where we're at, and I think in terms of budgeting, of course, we've been placing a large amount of focus previously when we started the FY27 budget process on personnel and then CIP. Now we're going to get into the crunch time of considering other asks such as a long-range master plan, or perhaps other types of planning documents or products that would come out of planning and development or elsewhere. But I think this represents a pretty good picture and spectrum of the choices that we could have. So I think what we would like to do is engage you all and see if you have any strong thoughts one way or the other as far as the direction we ought to go in.
Okay, you want me to start?
You can go ahead, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
What are we looking at to finish up what we've got financially?
In terms of dollars or projects?
Dollars?
Well, we've had some interesting discussions with regard to that as early or as late as today, because we met with the CIP review committee, which Catherine is on, and I spoke with Catherine rather extensively about her asks. I don't know if you wanted to lead with it, Catherine, but I could kick it off by saying what Catherine and I did, what was it? It was well before Christmas, maybe Thanksgiving. We put together what we called a dream board. And we did some brainstorming, and I think if that was reflected in your CIP asks, we were probably talking about, which we won't have available, and we're going to have to cut our hair or do a self-haircut, but about $125 million worth of projects over some period of time, whether it's at Catawba Bend, Wood End, Field Day, am I missing a part?
Worth Mountain.
Worth Mountain, and I don't think we've even considered yet any potential future land acquisition,
Correct.
because I think the plan would serve as a conduit to help us be strategic in that regard. So when we did our first haircut, I think we maybe went from 125 million down to about 40 million, but maybe
Less
44
than-
million.
Probably less than that.
Yeah. So, you know, you might say that we're resource rich, but a little cash poor. But what I would argue and advocate for is doing a plan to help us get better direction on what we need to be doing in the future, be it the will of the HEP committee or subsequently the council. And when you look at a CIP document, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be refreshing it every year. You're going to have the current year capital budget, and then you're going to be planning for 5 years out and rolling it over every year. So we're going to have an annual opportunity to see what kind of dollars that we have available, and see where we can try to put it. But I would say that if you want to call them elephants or gorillas in the room, we know we have a substantial amount of debt to pay off, and you may bail me out on this, but both in Bethel Lake Wiley and with Catawba Bend with the land purchase. And that debt probably, unless it were prepaid a couple of years in advance, will last till at least 2032. Yeah, I'm a millennium ahead of myself. But so that will open up, I think, a lot of opportunity. But I think in the first 5 or 6 year period, we're probably going to have to be frugal and take what we have and make as much of a meaningful experience as we can. But if we're going to be, and if we want to be more aggressive, or if we don't, I think we're going to need some kind of planning option to look at. I don't know if that answered your question,
Okay,
but
part B, that was A, this is B.
okay.
Part B was, and I spoke to this before the guy that came and we had the other plan. And I was a tad underwhelmed by what he presented. But But to me, supposedly, what he was supposed to give us was what you're just saying. All the things you're saying, what we need to do first, which he did a lot of that with staffing and, you know, opened our eyes to broader things. But I just, feel bad about using more taxpayer money for another consultant when we had a consultant, and I don't know that we have utilized everything that he has said, but we could take the money that we're using for a second consultant and put down on things that need to be done on these other parts. I just don't think we need to be looking for the future until we get a clear grasp on what we currently have. Because I think that's very poor use, and I think that our taxpayers are gonna see that. They're gonna say, well, we haven't done this, we haven't done that, and here they're gonna go back and have another survey and spend all this money on another consultant. I'm not for it.
Well, I can appreciate that. And I will say, although I probably couldn't do it in the level of detail that Catherine or Joe could, but I know we've executed a good bit of things that came out of the Clemson study, and I think what's left or what was established with the Clemson study can be useful for some advanced planning too. But I understand your point, and because I can see a scenario. Okay, even if we do the baseline plan, and we've got a robust list or schedule, whether it's land acquisition or other types of capital projects, we still have a little bit of a dilemma in how we're going to fund something, especially if it's aggressive. Because I think that debt, for the time being, although it was money well spent, it prohibits us from being aggressive unless we can develop an alternative revenue source. So, but your thoughts are well taken, and we're listening. And anything you wanted to add about the Clemson study?
No, I mean, I think, the Clemson study, to your point, focused on, the current status of the Parks Department and where we were doing that inventory, doing some public engagement, trying to meet with other providers in the county to understand what lacks here, to start to kind of think about the future, like what the needs may be down the road. And out of the recommendations, to Tom's point, we've bit off a good bit of that in the last year and a half. Once we completed that plan, we've made some huge strides. But the scope wasn't outlined for us to develop a plan for maybe future acquisitions, or even on deep into how to finance and have develop that long range plan. That's not how the scope was written, which is why we got the deliverables that we got. So I don't know if that answered your question, but like Tom, I mean, hear and understand too what you're saying.
Okay, I've said my piece.
I'll add to what you just asked, and then I've got a couple questions too. First of all, I appreciate all the work you all have done to present this to our committee. I think it's important to look back so we understand, well, Andy, before you joined county council, we were not having these conversations in these committee meetings. So when I joined council in 2023, I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm very transparent. So. Catherine made it clear to who she reported up to that there were needs in the Parks and Recreation Department. And I caught wind of those needs, and I believed what she was saying because I asked questions. And so as one council member, I went to other members of council and said, there is a real need in Parks and Rec, looking at the growth that York County's seeing. They have outlined exactly what they need in this upcoming budget. And we didn't help. So the consultant came in and did exactly what he needed us to do, and that's look at our immediate needs and show us what our immediate needs were, which is what he did, which is pretty much what you said. I should have been probably going to a Tom Couch at that point in time, and I went directly to you for the answers, and I try not to do that anymore. I go directly to the assistant county managers. But the study that was done told us what Catherine was already saying. Okay, so we had an official report on what the roadmap was in a short-term path. So then we get to this, and let me ask this question, kind of the same thing. A year before, we actually allocated some money. When we allocated some money in last year's budget, we were a year behind. And so that leads to my question. If we do nothing with what you're bringing to us now, I'm interested in the timeline of doing nothing. What then can staff do to carry this forward to a point? And then I'll just ask this question, I think it'll be easier. Then if you can get to option one and do some of this on your own, how long is it going to take you or the county to ultimately get to option three? How many years later will you get to option three? And you don't know this, but there's an opportunity cost to everything. So if we do nothing, how long does it take you to accomplish option one, option two, and option three? Is that a fair question to ask? If we allocate nothing for this and we say, we really need you all to figure this out amongst everything else you're doing, figure it out and get it done, I'd like your feedback. And let me say this, just speaking out loud. When I look at what you're putting up here, you're basically saying you can go to a firm that has multiple consultants probably, that have experience in different areas, and I do have a couple of questions about foundation-ready implementation plan, shared use partnerships, makes me think about the YMCA and the Rock Hill School District building an natatorium. I want to give more examples, but there is opportunity to access money by partnering, which I think makes a lot of sense. So let's just fall back to what I asked. If we say as a council, we're not going to allocate any money to this, what's the path forward look like?
Well, maybe I'll begin, we'll call it the 30,000-foot view, and
Yes, sir.
I'll let Catherine and Joe do the dive bombing. But I think I said before, or initially, when the question of this plan came up, the reason you hire a consultant is for expertise and speed. So that plays directly into your question. I think if we were going to do this on our own, and I'm really projecting and speculating, because if I had a little more time to think about the question, and I do want to continue to discern it, but I think we would have to build some strategic bones within the Parks Department. And I think, Catherine and Joe, you wouldn't disagree with me, but there are some, if not many, metro-sized parks departments that have their own parks planners.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that could very much be an option. But whether it's a parks planner or a land use planner, they're not. You really have to get a needle out of a haystack to find one, unless you know somebody you can poach. But that's a possibility, and that would shorten the time frame. As you were forming the question, you know, my first reaction was 369, but 9 years is just, you know, out of the question, because I personally, myself, think that it's important that we engage in some form or capacity with the municipalities, with the nonprofits, with the schools, and maybe we can do that informally, just as we could do it formally in trying to put together a consultant-led plan. So I would really like to take some more time to discern the question that you're asking, but I think it's possible to do it another way, except that if you do hire a parks planner, you have to be willing to accept a legacy cost in an employee. So, you know, if you have a parks planner and you have the position established for 10 years or infinity, you know, that's easily going to be, I would say, $100,000 to $150,000 per year indefinitely.
Hoping
So-
you have the right person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, so let me ask this question then, and I look forward to your follow-up,
Yes, sir.
going deeper on the question. What do you, the three of you, what do you all see is the cultural impact or non-impact of a Parks and Recreation Department that is run well and is meeting the needs of the citizens, especially knowing that RFAT says 25 years from now, we will double in size, and that growth is going to happen in unincorporated York County for the most part, because there's just not much land left anywhere else. So knowing that, option 3 you said could take, it's a 9 or 10 year outlook.
That might be
maybe.
a little rich.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a look out into the future, and it brings everybody together and uses your resources based on what it's saying. You're using your resources efficiently. But what's the cultural impact if we slow play our role with parks and not getting out ahead of this, if that's possible?
I'll defer to the professionals.
And by the way, let me say one other thing too. To y'all's defense, and to our dismay and our challenge, I'm gonna guess that when you're looking at our future budget needs for York County, this year, when we have budget conversations, which we're starting to do right now, that we're gonna have some really difficult conversations, because York County has run extremely lean. And when I say this, somebody's gonna listen and take it out of context. What's that gonna be? Wants to pass taxes? It's not it. You got to figure out, though, we have to figure out how do we prioritize the needs of this county that one day or another, we're gonna have to pay for them. The question is, are we gonna be, I equate it to 161 and 274. I equate it to what Fort Mill, what's happened in Fort Mill today. I equate it to Highway 521. The effort needs to be placed into the vision and the plan to do what it is you need to do, or we have glowing examples in this county of what it looks like if you don't do it. And that comes with a price, unfortunately. We had a planner in our budget last year. It was in planning and zoning, not for parks, but it would have been an overlap. We took that out. So we have some difficult decisions to make. We have run very lean, and there's we're either have to raise taxes or really get serious about economic development, or both, to accomplish the things that we have to do. And confidentially, there's some pretty expensive, we know those conversations of items that are on our plate in the future, but then you have these that are public. And, you know, whatever you invest, there's a price tag to what you're ultimately gonna have to do too, so you gotta figure out how you're gonna pay for that. And I won't get on a tangent and give examples, but apologize, but I thought that was important to mention, because we're gonna be talking about this over the next 6 months, that's for sure.
But to revert to your
I can
initial
make more
question,
comments, but I'm not. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. To revert to your initial question, though, I think you were asking Joe and Catherine what the basic needs are going forward for 5, 10 years?
You know, the cultural impact
The
too.
cultural impact, I'm sorry, thank you.
Yeah, I think, you know, the Clemson study focused on the current, right? And I think there's been a lot of conversation about possible future land acquisition. I know there's different thoughts about purchasing land to develop when we can't develop what we have now, but we can only, a future plan, to your point, allows us to not be behind the 8 ball when that time comes. And I think, you know, given where we are today and 3-4 years ago, when we started this department and where we were then and what we've accomplished since we did the Clemson study, and that kind of part 1 of the master plan, in my opinion, has paid true dividends, you know, to see the progress that we've made as a department, and the impact that we're going to continue to make and improve on in this county. To your point, you know, a future plan takes into account the growth, the population. If we don't plan for that, whether it's us, whether it's in-house or hiring a firm to do so, we're gonna be back behind the 8 ball and probably lacking in serving that, you know, increased population. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
It does somewhat.
You have any thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, just having some capacity, whether it's in-house or external, to guide those decisions. As we know, the county's going to grow, to be able to take advantage of opportunities of potential future sites before they get developed, so that Parks isn't getting the leftovers of the parcels that maybe are highly undesirable or very limited in what we can actually do to offer the citizens.
Mhm.
So, you know, if we have a longer term plan, that will help guide those decisions as we work with planning and development and some of the other entities that, when opportunities do arise, we'll know, hey, this is a good potential project site for down the road, or no, this isn't really in an area where we need future services. We've got this area kind of covered, help guide those decisions when opportunities arise.
And I think through the process too, you identify what other plans other municipalities and or members of the community, like the schools or the nonprofits, so that we can align certain plans. That's where we identify partnership opportunities.
Todd Benny Nation's one too.
Yeah, I mean, just so that, you know, we're not bearing the burden alone per se.
Let me ask a follow-up question then. Whether you do nothing, you do 1, 2, or 3, once they hand you the results of what they came up with, you've got to take what they give you and take action on it.
Mhm.
So is this staff in a position to do this, or is this a future staff that would have to be in position to pick up what they lay down, the vision they're laying out, all the work they do in due diligence? You know, it's no different from my office. So it's, you know, we had a meeting and we came up with this and that was great, but we hadn't done anything with it.
Yeah. Well, it has to be,
The worst response you can have.
in my opinion, it needs to be perpetual. And, you know, down the road, it's always wise to update plans. But, and then, you know, you'll have plans, particularly with capital elements, or even if they include operations and maintenance, buy a cow, you gotta feed it. You know, the plan is a guide. It's not meant to be this static product where, you know, if you don't follow it, the world's going to fall apart.
Right.
You know, but it gives a snapshot, in my opinion, and ultimately, even though if we tried to feed up information to committee and council, it is going to be the council's vision of what they want parks to be. And right now, we're nature-based, although we've got, I would say, leisure, for example, with Ebenezer, and more on the programming side with Field Day. I, as a recovered planner, would probably say that you know, the cities are only going to be able to grow so much. You'll probably see more growth in York and Clover than you will population-wise, sans annexation with the other 3 cities, Fort Mill, TVK, and Rock Hill. So I think, and with a growing utility system up around Lake Wylie, we're going to see growth in the northern and western side of the county. It may not permeate to the rural municipalities, but we're going to have to do something. And I think it begins with what is the vision for council with staff guidance? What do you want parks to be? And you know, another alternative, if you wanted to go the budget route, so to speak, and I've talked to Jonathan about this, we could, although it would be an additional cost on the margin, but maybe not as much as on either of these 3 options, we could add a parks and recreation element to the comprehensive plan. You know, that might not be a bad deal either, because you see how it fits into all of the other elements of planning. And at the same time, I just learned last week that I wasn't aware of before in comprehensive planning, South Carolina has what they call the Priority Investment Act, or the element that you have to put into a comprehensive plan, which we have one, but I don't know that we're following that plan, or following that element. So I think there could be an opportunity to sort of piggyback it onto the comprehensive plan. So I think no matter what we do, it goes back to the vision of what council and the community wants our parks department to be. And I think once we have that, we can figure out how to pivot, maneuver, moderate what you all want to do. But we do have challenges still yet in supporting what we have and trying to make what we have better. So if you want premier parks, we could the vision could be, we're going to maintain the status quo, but we're gonna make these parks the best parks they can be. Or you can escalate or elevate to broader engagement and partnerships.
Here's my fears and views of this. I agree with Debbie that
Don't
some
give me
of
a heart
this.
attack now.
I agree with you a lot. So that a lot of this stuff was covered in that first. A lot of the option 2 items were covered in the Clemson study. I don't know that we need a lot of public survey meetings or online engagement tools or any of that stuff, or what the community wants to see. They state we've got a good statistical representation of the county. Now, where I defer away from that is that I think, as y'all said, we've completed most of the action items on that initial plan. Now we need to get into looking at the bigger picture, because there's an opportunity cost that's lost, which I think Watts had kind of touched on. But in the event that an opportunity comes up in the future, we need to know whether that item will fit in our plan,
Mm-hmm.
So that we can take action on it without losing the opportunity. Let's say if we do this plan, even if we don't implement it, but we at least have it to look at, and development starts going in these certain areas, we can look at them and go, hey, we have a need for a park over here, so as y'all develop this, we need y'all to develop a park or donate the land for a park in this area. If we don't know that we need it over there in whatever area it is, then we don't know to ask for it. Same thing with the Fort Mill area. If there's still some green over there a little bit, but if they ask for something, we can say, hey, we might not get much, we can at least get a trail. We got a trail system that's working over here. Mm-hmm. We need to get this. We need y'all to donate this land for a trail or this other item. Again, if we don't know we need it, then we don't know to ask for it. Looking at the parks, like you said, we can stay where we're at. We can take the properties that we have and just do something with them. Is that the best idea? I don't know. The strategic plan says that's not what we're going to do. I'm going to put the onus back on previous councils that they have given us a bunch of unfunded mandates. The parks that they didn't fund. We got roads that we got all over the place that ain't funded. We got water and sewer improvements that they didn't set funds aside to keep these things up. Now we're caught with it. It hasn't been done, and now we've got to make that decision, or we can move it down the road. In 2004 or 5, when they decided to get out of the park system before, or get out of parks and rec, instead of they took that path, whereas if they had taken this plan of thinking for the future, at least we would have had somewhere to go in the event that we wanted to get back in it. So I like having plans. The cost today is the cheapest it's ever going to be. I surely don't want to hire somebody to do this, because even if you only hired them for a year, that cost is going to be how much, is the cost of just having a consultant do it. And what was the other part of that? I just feel like we got to have oh, I know what it was. I think Tom's been kind of sugarcoating what he thinks his staff can do. I work in the government, and you're stretched thin. I know everybody thinks the government's bloated, and some departments might be, but in general, you run with the very bare minimum of the people you can do to do your everyday job, and then to add a large task on top of it. Tom said 10 years to get to that end, it would never get done. It would never make it. In year 4 or 5, it would be like, we aren't getting there, and it would get pushed off, and then we got more important things, and you could never get to it. It just wouldn't get done.
Well, like I said, please remember,
Right.
at some point, I think the council has to have a collective vision of what the level of service is gonna be. And, after hearing all this, I kind of, even though it may not necessarily be ideal to parks, maybe adding a parks element, if we think we're going to be committed to updating our comprehensive plan next year, we could add that in there, and that kind of gives an opportunity to look at other things that's going on in the community, and we can see how that fits in, and at least we're getting some kind of advancement or elevation from the Clemson plan.
Right. And
And that's through the state?
I'm sorry?
Was that through the state that you're talking about doing that?
No,
Whatever that was?
Priority investment.
the Priority Investment
Yeah.
Act is a portion of what you're supposed to put in your comprehensive plan. We actually have in our existing plan, but next year is an update, and I'm sure you'll be getting an ask in the budget to update the comprehensive plan, which is sorely needed. But it would add a little bit of cost at the margin, but if you align it with the Priority Investment Act element, we could at least get some kind of snapshot of what we're looking for. And frankly, in the comprehensive plan, it's sort of a given that you're going to have some public feedback anyway. And yeah, you're just kind of throwing parks in there with, transportation and housing and everything else, but it is an opportunity for parks to get some focus.
I fear that we're going to end up with something that we're not going to like out of it. Yeah, we got something, but it's not going to be usable or.
I just want to make a couple of comments. Okay, Catawba Bend, what do you, like, off the top of your head, how much are we looking at to, I don't even think there's a number to complete it, but to get it usable, really usable?
Well, I think the master plan, when it was approved, I think it estimated around 50 million. That was, 2021 cost, and that's assuming you're fully building out the park. I don't have the top of the.
See, I think that we took a chunk.
With the lack,
Oh.
with the lack of a plan. See, that was the thing.
Yeah.
They didn't have a plan for it. It
But
popped up.
You got it, you gotta deal with it.
You do.
I mean, you do. And so I've just,
Well-
enough said about Catawba Bend.
And everything was focused on Catawba Bend,
And it's
maybe
still
not.
gonna be.
Well, maybe not everything needs to be in there.
Well, We'll
That
see.
that was a very grand plan.
and it was gonna put us on the map.
Which is really where the park's focus shifted to Worth Mountain and Lake Wiley was as a result of the Clemson study. Well, y'all were already saying it, but the Clemson study
Right.
put it in writing in front of council. And there's been work done since then as a result of that.
So, I mean, that's just, it's still looming. I don't care what you say,
Yeah,
it's
it's
still looming.
It's an
there.
unfounded mandate.
Yes, okay, so you got that, and then you've got, oh gosh, I had two more really good points.
They'll come back to you.
It'll,
As we
Circle.
adjourn.
Well, here,
It'll circle back
let me
around.
talk about one little thing. Maybe it'll come back to you. The countywide analysis was the other part that I would think that we really need to see how our parks interact, at least on a map, compared to what the municipalities have. Because, you know, if they have something sitting here, and that's gonna be within the,
Yeah.
you know, the access radius of an area,
Yeah.
we need to do that, so we
I
aren't,
have,
you got it now? Okay.
this is kinda out there. And that is all this development that you guys say is gonna come to our wonderful agricultural land that I don't want anything to happen to. But y'all are saying it's gonna come. I say those developers, if they want that land, they put a park in. They spend their money. They want it, they're gonna have to pay for it.
That's what I just said in our last meeting, that we need to be talking about how development is paying for the future growth and
That
infrastructure
takes the
of York County.
whatever off our back.
But we need to
whatever
know
that is.
what, that's where the plan,
Well,
so it
no,
would help
they're gonna
to-
tell us what they want. They're gonna
Well,
come
we
to us,
should
they
tell-
say, I want this, well, then you want that, then this is what you're gonna have. You're gonna have to put a new school in, and you're gonna have to put roads in, and you're gonna have to put a park in.
we should tell them what kind of park.
And we should tell them what kind of park.
Yeah, but, and that's where that plan, and that's where a
So that-
transportation plan comes too. So when we tell them, you gotta build this road, they know, we
But I
don't
mean,
build a two-lane
You know,
road when you need
we
a four
had
lane.
this wonderful dinner the other night, and I
Mhm.
sat there and I cried.
Mhm.
I did, tears came into my eyes for the farmers, that their land is gonna just be gobbled up. But now the state, what we have to take into consideration is the state has got some initiatives to help farmers and to encourage the younger generation to keep the farms. They've got some initiatives coming up. So maybe we don't lose as much of our agricultural land as, because I mean, they wanna put the brakes on,
Well,
and they should.
it only gets gobbled up if they sell it, and
That's
We
exactly.
But
have
I'm
to-
saying they're getting, you know, they talked about, Michael Johnson
And that
talked about
ties-
the initiatives.
and that ties into the, York County Forever, which
Right.
is if we know what areas we wanna preserve land,
Mhm.
which would be part of the parks, then we can investigate doing more conservation easements. You know, we're gonna need help from the farmers also to keep it from being developed. They can't sell to developers, and they need to put conservation easements on their property.
Mr. Chair, I don't want to cheat
I'm sorry.
Catherine and Joe out of the little time we have left on Wood End and
Yeah.
Cabo Bend updates, but I think what we're hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, there may be some reluctance to do this at this time. However, I think what we can do is either until the next HEP committee meeting or as we proceed with the budget process, we'll have a good internal discussion. We'll include planning. You know, what can we do that can help you all get parks where you want it to be? But there has to be a little bit of a covenant, and we have to figure out a way to entice you or invite you into the conversation. You know, what is county council's long-term vision for premier parks, given the constraints that we have with funding? And I think we've got the intellectual bones at the staff level to assist you in figuring this out. But I think what we're hearing is, we've done our due diligence, as you all asked a couple months ago. This is what it looks like to get a private consultant with 3 different options of scope of service. But we're gonna go back to the drawing board and see what we can do to make this 369 example I talked about, try to shrink the timeline a little bit. And we can do it, and we're committed to doing it. And again, it might be putting that parks element in the comprehensive plan, because I don't think it's gonna cost that much more in the margin.
Do we take a vote, or do we have to make something to put it in the budget, that way it gets in front of the whole council for council direction?
Well,
we get to that point, I
Cause
think.
I
that
hate to push this thing off
we're
another
coming
year.
with a recommendation. I was just gonna say, I mean, I'd love to hear you all, not tonight, you're not prepared, but come in and make a recommendation to us and tell us why. What do you think? What are you staffed for? What are you not staffed for? Why does option 1, 2, or 3 make sense? Come in here with a recommendation and tell us why.
I think that's what they should do for,
And
in the budget.
What's the opportunity cost? Yeah, what's the opportunity cost for doing it or not doing it?
mhm. And we may have to mix.
We're running a business and, you know.
Takes
I've already-
money to make money.
Yeah, and I've already given the example that we
Mm-mm.
run lean and we kick
Our
the
rent
can down
business
the
for
road.
50 years is not, you gotta pay for what you got.
Yeah, no
And-
doubt. And we do, because we don't really carry any debt. That's a great thing
I know
that we
that,
don't.
but I mean, you got Catawba Bend as it's a rock around our neck.
Yep,
And it's not gonna go away,
right.
and we gotta come to some realistic,
Maybe part of that plan is cutting some of that out of it. That was a wish list pie in the sky.
I think that's where y'all ought to come back, because you all are doing the work. You're familiar with what you see. You're familiar with your vision, what makes sense. Come back and make a recommendation to us. Help us see what you see.
But again, referring back to my suggestion,
on a rock and put it.
referring back to my suggestion of a covenant, I think we would ask in return, think at a bigger level of what you envision our scope of services being in the future. And that can go maintain the status quo and try to build into what we have, or maybe thinking altruistically about future population growth and where the demand may be for capital investment or services. If you can bring information like that back to us at a broader level, I think that helps us.
You said us, council, you're gonna have to get that in front of the council somehow,
Well-
'cause us three, we can't speak for those other four, by no means.
Well, I think similar to last year when we took stuff from the HEP and worked into the budget, I think what we would want is for y'all to be supportive of, to the point
Right.
that you would speak on behalf of that as
Sure.
part of the budget
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to do here, is make sure we're aligning with what y'all think before we put it in the budget.
Well, along with what you're saying though, I said, just to use option 3 as an example, I could use 1 or 2, it doesn't really matter, but let's just say we said we're going all in on option 3, and we get through this process, where does it leave Parks and Rec? Parks and Rec's going, well, we're not staffed to implement option 3, and so now we gotta go to council, because we need 4 more staff members to actually bring this to fruition, because now we've talked to the municipalities and the school districts and the not-for-profits, and we know what they're looking to do now, and there's opportunities for partnership, but where's this money coming from? So we've painted this picture of the future that we can't fund, which is kind of going back to what Debbie's saying to some extent. So we have, you all know what you're capable of doing with your staff now and what you're gonna be asking us for next. So what falls in line with what you can legitimately accomplish if you hired a consultant? Because the question on the table was, what if you do nothing? What if we do nothing? Where are you gonna be? So where
Well,
does
that's
that
what the
place us?
consultant's gonna have to tell us is how many more, they're gonna have to get no plan to even know how many more
Exactly.
people they need.
Well, or
that's
to
what-
take into account where do the
Yeah.
future parks go? If
Right.
you've got all this growth and you got all these new people coming to the county that ultimately we should be providing recreation services and facilities for, I think that's what the plan can help speak into. And then I think that's where staff can provide the information as to, okay, you need a park in this part of the county, it needs to be X, Y, and Z amenities. Well, then we can speak into what the operating costs would be associated with that
Right.
future park.
I'll just say this one last thing. There's plenty of property that was bought 20 years ago for a school. And that's not necessarily where a school needs to go today that these school districts own. It's somewhere else. And that somewhere else may be close to where we need to put a park. And it makes sense to collaborate.
Well, Mr. Chair, I think Madam Clerk is giving us the director's
time.
look, but
All right, you
I
got,
can be very
you got
brief.
3 minutes to do your,
I will be very brief.
She's steering it. I
Oh,
think that's
Karen,
working.
you mind? Okay. So I just wanted to provide a quick update on where we are with the capital projects. Catawba Bend and Wood End is, we kind of referenced, the Clemson plan. It provided recommendations in there to, you know, get Catawba Bend open, continue to fund, you know, the construction there, as well as provide minimum access to these other properties, which are the two I'm gonna speak about today. Catawba Bend, we are nearing completion there. We're kind of in our final lap, I guess. Yeah, going through the punch list items. Phase 1 includes the entrance road into the park, gatehouse, restroom, you know, the trailhead area, and you should have a calendar invite. I know Karen pushed that out today for you guys to come have a tour. The mountain bike trail project, which was grant funded and 50-50 match, it's in the design phase currently, as well as the disc golf course, which was also funded through a grant. The dam repairs for ponds 3, 4, and 5, which are the 3 lower ponds, which is where all of the natural trails and things are going now. Those reconstruction of those dams are under construction right now. And then the Greenway Trail is slated to start construction this summer. The design's already complete, so you know we had approved funds to construct that 1 mile. Wood End Park, the minimal access kind of projects underway. You see there's a picture of kind of the gravel parking lot that's been complete. The house has been demolished, and we are in the beginning stages of design for the hiking trails, which is all part of that minimal access. And then the picture above next to Catawba Bend is a picture of the restrooms. That's an actual photo of what they look like. So, yeah.
Great work.
Well, we'll get back with you all. We hear you, and we'll sharpen our saw or our chalk and go back to the chalkboard.
Okay, thank you. Great work.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank y'all.